Ooh, have I got a topic for you guys today. Today we're gonna talk about something that I think is really, really important to talk about. This is something that a lot of people deal with. I know I said the same exact thing at the start of the last video, but I feel like all these topics are really, really important to talk about. This one personally I've struggled with for a long time, and I think it'll be hypocritical of me to say that I've mastered it, because really you can't. I don't think it's possible to master something like this, but it is possible to mitigate it. It is possible to make it a little bit easier, and it is possible to over time learn to accept things and let go of certain things. Now, sorry, I had to kill him. I had to make sure he died. In this video, we're gonna talk about letting go of the past, letting go of people that have done you wrong. And when I say letting go, I don't mean like cutting them off per se. In certain scenarios, if someone has done you wrong and you feel the need to cut them off for your own mental health or benefit, that might be the way to go. But that's not really the topic of this video. That's not the point that I'm trying to make. When I say letting go, what I mean is forgiving people. I think that it's really important to forgive people, and it doesn't always have to be because you're a people pleaser or you're doing it because you want to make them feel better. What forgiveness really is it's an inherently selfish but kind way to let go of something that is preventing you from moving on or making you a hateful or resentful person. Forgiveness is so important in life, and if you can't forgive, then you will never really be able to grow as much as you want to, I feel like. I mean, it's so important to be able to forgive people, you know? I think a lot of times people feel like they have justified reasons to never forgive someone, but if you can't forgive someone, then you're letting them win, right? Because you give the other person all the power in the world. You take all the power away from yourself that you might have, and you let them win, right? Because at the end of the day, it's hurting you. It's not hurting them. Whatever happened, whatever you're dealing with, whatever happened in your life that's preventing you from forgiving someone, that's gonna hurt you more than it's gonna hurt them. I'm gonna share a story of my life that I vaguely talked about in the past that I think is a perfect example of this. And it's about my parents, more specifically my dad. Now, if you guys don't know, my parents are divorced, okay? I've talked about this many different times. It's a pretty normal subject, nothing sensitive, so I don't want people like being like, oh my god, your parents are divorced. My parents are divorced, but growing up, I had a lot of resentment towards my dad. Now, he was always a good dad, but sometimes it really felt like he wasn't. Looking back, he was always a good dad, and the truth is, right, we have such high expectations for our parents, but a lot of times they've never done this before. A lot of times they don't know what they're doing, and a lot of times they're just doing their best. Now, some parents obviously are not always doing their best, so I won't say, oh, your parents are always doing their best. But in my case, I think my parents were really just doing their best to raise me the best way they knew how. And I think sometimes I didn't agree with it. I, didn't like my dad for a lot of things that happened, and I resented him for it. And as I grew up, that resentment didn't really go away. As the divorce was finalized, as I got older, my resentment for them stayed, or more specifically my dad, not both of my parents. My resentment for my dad stayed, and I think the fact that I lived with my mom for a long time amplified that resentment. I always had this certain perception of my dad, that he was a certain type of person, and until I was able to really let go of that and forgive him, I never really realized how much of a different person he really is than my interpretation of him. Until I was able to forgive him, I realized that I was the one preventing us from actually being able to have a good relationship. I'm not gonna say that like he didn't do things and I didn't do things, but the truth is that at the end of the day, me not forgiving him was just an excuse to be able to be upset about something that I didn't need to be upset about. It's not just for him, right? Like I didn't just do it for him. I did it for myself because I wanted to have a good relationship with him. I wanted to be able to have a good relationship with him. So it took me a long time. It took me many years. And I last year at some point, I realized that I had this, even when we had a good relationship, I had this like subconscious resentment for my dad. And I realized it was like deeply rooted in years of like traumatic experiences that I went through as a kid, and the divorce and things that my mom said to me about my dad and stuff like that. And it was like, at this point, I had a good relationship with him, but I realized I still hadn't truly forgiven him for stuff that had happened, and I hadn't truly forgiven myself for stuff that I had done as well. And our relationship was once again good at that point, but it never would have reached the point that it's reached now which is a much better relationship, if I wasn't able to recognize that and truly forgive him. Now, sometimes when you forgive people, it won't make your relationship better. And I know a lot of people say the phrase forgive but never forget. And I think in a lot of cases that's pretty applicable. I think it's important to remember what happened because you learn from your experiences. Your experiences shape who you are, but it's also equally important to be able to forgive that person for yourself. In this case, I wanted to forgive my dad for myself and also him because I realized that the resentment I held for him for stuff that happened over 5 years ago was only straining our relationship and making me upset. I gained nothing from doing that. There was nothing to gain, right? Because what's even the point? What's the point of being upset with someone? Because all you're doing is bringing negativity into your own life. All you're doing is negatively affecting yourself, and all you're doing is really hurting yourself in the long run, right? Because all that energy that you put into like hating and being like an upset person, all that is on you, right? You have to deal with that every day. You have to live with it. And it's a lot of energy. And if you've ever been a hateful person, I think everyone has at some point, you know how much stress it is, how draining it is to hate someone. I mean, it's a stressful thing to go through. I think more importantly, a lot of times people don't realize, but they also need to forgive themselves. And this goes into a whole thing of not regretting the past, which I'm going to talk about in another video. But it's so important to be able to forgive people and also forgive yourself for things that you may have done when you were younger or may have done in the past. I think that until you're able to do this, I don't think you can really be happy with yourself, and I don't think you can really reach that point that you want to reach in life. Now, the last thing I'll say about this situation is I've given a scenario about my dad, but there are cases, as I said earlier, where you should forgive people, but sometimes it's not the best idea to have them in your life. And I stand by that. I think sometimes it's definitely for the better, forgiving someone, but keeping them out of your life regardless, because sometimes it's just not worth it. Sometimes you got to know when to cut that cord, sometimes you got to know what's best for you. And sometimes you can't do that if that person's in your life, but that doesn't mean you can't forgive someone. You can still forgive someone and let them go. For example, I mean, I do my best to have good relationships with all the people around me, but that didn't always just happen, right? At some point I've had relationships where I've struggled. I've had relationships when I've hated people and been upset with people for doing me wrong, and I felt wronged in my life, and I've still cut them out of my life over time, right? Because it wasn't the best thing for me, but I have forgiven them. I've forgiven everyone that really did me wrong, and I've come to terms with that because I realized that resentment, like every time someone says that person's name and I think of like something negative, that really only affects me, right? And it only affects my quality of life. So once again, I didn't do it for them. I did it for myself because I didn't want to feel something that I was feeling every single time that person's name came up, right? I didn't want to hate someone for something that they might have done to me a year ago. And it doesn't really matter what kind of person they are, because once again, you're not letting that person back into your life if you don't want to. You don't have to, but you can still forgive them and really let go of that resentment, that hatred. And I think that at the end of the day, being able to forgive and let go really helps you become best version of yourself, the best version of who you are, someone that can be at peace with your past experiences and past relationships, whether they be good or bad. Anyways, sorry, I got really deep into this because I just think it's so important to be able to forgive people and let things go. If you have anything to add, let me know in the comments. And I want you guys to tell me in the comments if you guys like these videos. If you guys like these videos, just let me know and I'll keep doing them. Follow my Snapchat, Specular Potato. I made a Snapchat. Follow my TikTok, Specular Official. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for watching this video, and peace out. Bye.